Okay then, so now our application is pulling data from our Firestore and showing that data on the screen right here. But at the minute, these things, although they delete that data locally, they're not going to delete that data up here. If I refresh now, even though I've clicked on the delete icons in the application, it's not going to update to show that here. So whenever I refresh in the actual application, we're always going to retrieve these three things. So it's not going to keep up to date over here. And we can see that if I refresh, there we go. So what we'd like to do now is hook up this delete button so that instead of just deleting it locally, like we currently do here, we just delete it from this array. What we'd like to do now is delete it from the database as well. So first things first, let me just comment this stuff out. Then what I'll do, keep it simple to begin with, I'm going to console.log the ID. So this is the ID that we retrieve. And remember, the ID is from the smoothie right there. So when we retrieved all of the data, we said the ID was the doc ID. So this is the auto-generated ID provided by Firestore. So let's have a look what that ID looks like whenever we click on a smoothie. I'm going to save this now and check this out in a browser. Now, if I click on this, we should see this random string over here. This is the ID. Okay, click on another one. It's got a different ID. Click on a different one, a different ID. So they all have those unique IDs which match up to the IDs present right here. So what we could do then is use the ID that we find when we click on a trash can, and we can query our database to find that record with that ID. When we find it, we can delete it. So let's go about doing that. Okay, so we'll do a little comment first of all. We'll get rid of this and we'll do a comment that says delete doc from Firestore. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is grab our database. Remember, we imported that up here. So we grab that, and again, we can say dot collection to reference a specific collection. Again, we want the Smoothies collection, much like before down here. Then what we want to do is not just get all of the data, we want to look for a specific document, the document with this ID. The way we look for a specific document or get a reference to a specific document is by saying dot doc, and then we can pass through the ID here as a parameter. So if we know the ID of a document, we can get a reference to it by saying dot doc, then passing in the ID. Okay? So now we have that reference, we can do something with it. We can say if we wanted to, dot delete. And that is a method that is then going to delete this document. So this again returns a promise because it's going to take some time to do. Therefore, we can tack on dot then, and inside this function, we can pass through a callback function, which is an ES6 arrow function. Now, because there's no parameter right here, I'll just do my double parenthesis, arrow, and then curly braces. Because we don't really need to receive anything back here. We're not asking for additional data. So then, what we'd like to do once this has completed is also sync up this. Because at the minute, although when we delete it on the front end, it's going to delete in Firebase, we're not updating this thing right here. So it's still going to show on the front end. And in fact, before we do anything here, I'll prove that. I'll save it and I'll come over here, refresh this. We still see all three of them. Now, if I click on something like Ninja Brew, for example, okay, right, I've deleted it. So let's head over to Firebase. We see that now Ninja Brew has gone. There's only two left here. So it's deleted it from the Firebase, but it's not updated on the front end. If we refresh, then it will update on the front end because we're going to re-grab that data. But as we click on it, it's not going to delete it there and then. And ideally, we want that to happen. We want this to match up so that if a user clicks on it, they're not thinking, why is it still there? So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to wait until this function fires in the .then function right here. So that when it's been deleted from the database, we can also delete it from here. And how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to do it very much the same way as we did down here. So let me just, in fact, uncomment this first of all, then copy it, or rather cut it and paste it inside here. So what we're saying now is we want to grab this .smoothies, which is this thing right here, and we want to update it. So we're setting it to something else. And the something else we're setting it equal to is this .smoothies.filter to filter something out. we're taking each individual smoothie and we're returning smoothie ID is not equal to the ID that we're passed here. So we're still doing the same thing as we did before. We're doing it locally, but now we're also doing it in the Firestore database as well. So it deletes locally and on the Firestore database, keeping everything in sync. So if we save this now, let me just delete this space and then view this in a browser. So we have two items, or we should have here. If I now delete one of them, it's going to delete in the database, but also delete on the front end once that has done. Now, if I refresh, we're only going to get morning mood because now it should have also been deleted in the database. And we can see that right here. We now just have one left. Okay, so now we've done that. We've figured out how we can retrieve data and show it on the page. And we've also figured out how we can delete data from Firestore and update that to reflect on the page as well. The next thing I'd like to do is add a smoothie because we're getting pretty light on smoothies on the front page right here. So we're going to start to flesh out the component to add a new smoothie in the next video.